Hi. Were you ever curious of what an alcoholic or a drug addict goes through? What contributes to he or she escaping the reality through substance abuse? And how it's just not the person but the entire family that needs attention and treatment? Well, then, in conversation with Dr. Aisha, who is currently working as a consultant physician and a wellness counselor at a rehabilitation center, Kripa Foundation in Goa. She has done her MBBS, her MA in addiction studies, and her MA in wellness counseling. Let's listen to what she has to say. A very good day to everyone. This is Keiki Thanki from Towards a Better You, and I have with me Dr. Aisha, who is a very dear friend of mine, and I would like to say that I'm grateful for you doing this for Towards a Better You and for the people who are watching this. And I just want to directly dig into the questions that we have for you so that people get the awareness that is needed, especially from people like you who are working with different targets of population, they're in different chunk of population. So without wasting much time, let's get into it. And I just want you to be as chilled out and just as if you're talking to me. Yeah? Super. Firstly, Aisha, what is the reason you got into this line of work?
So, there's a saying which goes like this, that you eventually land up where you are supposed to be. You land up with the person with whom you are supposed to be, and you end up doing the things which you are supposed to do, right? So, after venturing into so many other different areas, I ended up coming into this particular profession, and it happened so that I was already working. And I had an opportunity to visit one of the rehabs, and one of the topmost rehabs, I would say. And something just clicked in there, because there were like a group of people under the same roof, who had the worst part of their life, like what we call as rock bottom, right? And they're still ready to put in whatever is left there with them. So with all the broken pieces, they are ready to take the help and start off once again.
Put in the effort.
Yes, and this is not easy, right? If you imagine if somebody robs you of with everything that you have, and then despite whatever, you still decide to come back again, you bounce back. It takes a lot of energy, strength, willpower, right? And here I am seeing people who are actually seen as weaklings by the rest of the society. Whereas the fact of the matter is, they are just the opposite. They are not the victims, they are the warriors here. They are the victors. Because they are there after losing everything, they are still there fighting.
Even after being vulnerable, they are still putting in the effort.
Yes. So that is what was strikingly appealing to me. And I was like, everything started appearing as a very dry thing. It just lost its all appeal to me when I saw this particular thing. And then you see, if you really want to do something, if you want to take something seriously, you have to increase your knowledge. You have to do that homework, right? So in that process, I did further studies. I did my master's in addiction studies. Then I did second master's in the wellness counseling from Nirmala. And that's how I tried to make myself like a well-equipped person to deal with this.
Okay. If you could tell the viewers your profile. So, you're a doctor, you're a counselor. So, if you could just give people a brief of what all areas do you specialize in?
So, I did my medical graduation long back. And then there was a big portion of my life where I was just trying to explore different things, and nothing was matching that kacha, I would say. And here is when I just touched this addiction thing, this de-addiction thing, I said, yeah, this is it. So that's why I found out there are not many institutes in India who deal with giving more knowledge or giving you an opportunity to do post graduations like masters and all regarding addiction. So I actually opted out and I went to Dublin to finish off this masters in addiction studies. When I came back, I wanted to work, and I had a small exposure of work after that. But then I realized that whatever I had studied was not enough. Okay, still I needed to learn something to be a counselor.
Right.
And trust me, Nirmala happened. And I'm so happy, I'm so glad that I went to that place and it changed my entire outlook. You know?
Perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And after that, since then, I have been working with the same kind of outlook. And of course, these rehabs, drug rehabs, they have been my choice of place
Calling.
to work. And I'm actually looking forward to work with a rehab which is for women, women oriented rehab. So that's the dream project. Let's see when that happens.
Beautiful. Okay, Aisha, what advice would you give family and friends in dealing with person who's overcome by addiction?
See, one thing that I learned in Nirmala was not to give advice. So I really don't give any advices. What I do is I try and help people educate themselves regarding addiction. People have this very false notion of thinking that a person who is addicted to alcohol, drugs, internet, gambling, whatever, they are low on their moral values, they are characterless people. This is what people think in their mind, whereas this is not the case. It is a disease. It is a disease, and it has got this chronic, relapsing, progressive characteristic to it. People think that it's just that the person doesn't want to come out of it. It is not so. So what I would, and usually what I do is I try to educate people on this bit. Not just friends and family, whoever is there, whoever comes in with this particular thing. The first thing is to get them aware of the whole thing. Give them the facts, not the myths and all.
Right.
Then after that comes the point that they need to understand that this doesn't happen in a day. Okay, so when I say that it's a medical disorder and it has got we call it biopsychosocial model. Okay, which means that it has a biological part, it has got a psychological part, and it has got a social part when it comes to the causes, right?
It
So
has
this
a
is like
contributing factor.
So this is like multifactorial thing happening.
Right.
And the person has got that addiction wala seed in them. So just like any seed will need a fertile ground, a proper atmosphere to grow, right, into a plant and then a tree. Similarly, this addiction thing, if the person has it in them, they would still need that kind
Biopsychosocial model.
to flare that thing up, to manifest itself, right? So, but then people think that he went there by choice. It's not a choice. A diabetic does not have a choice to be a diabetic or not. And it is the similar kind of a thing. It's a chronic disorder like diabetes or hypertension or asthma for that matter. Yeah, you have it in you, and then when there is a proper atmosphere, proper environment for it to flare up, it flares up. And just like a diabetic who learns how to manage his life with the fact that he is a diabetic, same thing happens in an addict. Okay, he or she needs to learn to manage his life, keeping this fact in mind that they have that in them. Right? So it is not something, it's a habit and you can break it. You will find so many spouses, they would ask their husbands or their wives, why don't you understand? How come you can't just drop it? Yeah, don't you understand? These are very silly questions. Of course, they know what are the ill effects. Probably they know much more than you because they are practically going through it. Yeah, but they can't stop because this is a disease. Right? They are obsessed towards that substance. They know that this is not good for them. They still go and have it because they can't stop. Right? So these kind kinds of information. They are very much required to be given to people. Once they understand what the disease is, then they will understand that okay, this is not something that they can take care of on themselves.
Correct.
They need to take professional help.
Right.
People do go cold turkey, but cold turkey thing is very uncommon. It's not all that frequent. You see, once in 1,000 or 2,000 would go cold turkey and then succeed. But otherwise, most of it has to be taken care of by a professional person. So these are the things which, I would go ahead and explain it to people who.
I wanted to ask you, like, when you were telling me about how people do not understand, rather than the person who's going through it understands it more than the family and friends or anybody per se. One thing I know is that people need to be open and receptive, in order to even understanding what you're trying to tell them, to teach them or bring in awareness. How do you do that? Like, how now they are coming from years of conditioned behavior of not being open, not being receptive, not wanting to understand, not being open to understanding. How do you do that?
See, this cannot be done by force.
Right.
All right. And most of the time, what happens is people have already tried their ways of dealing with it. Say, for example, a wife would have tried n number of things to deal with her alcoholic husband. She would have tried her emotional gimmicks and whatever, right? So all the home remedies are already tested and tried, and that's the time when they approach, when they realize, I can't do this.
When the
This is
situation
not
is out of control.
Yeah, I am actually powerless in front of this whole thing. I need professional help, come what may, isn't it? So somewhere they have already shifted from that place of pre-contemplation, as you say, to a phase wherein they understand this bit that okay, this is not something that I can do it on my own and I need help. That's the time when I need to push them, or any counselor needs to push them, so that they become further open. Now the people who are absolutely a no, they are in denial, right? Ki kuch nahi hua hai. There's nothing wrong with my family. There's nothing wrong with this person, or there's nothing wrong with me, right? We need to keep working with them until and unless they come into that accepting phase. You see, this cannot be done by force, as I said. This has to be done with a lot of patience. Okay, you have to keep doing it till the time there's a ray of hope there. And once it is done, then the things get easy. But it is totally up to the counselor or the therapist, right? If I lose patience there with somebody who's not ready to accept, then probably I'm not in the right place, right? But again, as I said earlier also, it's a teamwork.
Right.
The person has to be receptive to what I say. I need to keep working, and I need to understand there's only as much I can do. Beyond that, I can't go.
Boundaries.
Yeah. So if I try and push myself there, then I'm going to burn out, right?
Right.
And I have to take care of that.
Correct.
So keeping in mind my own boundaries and limitations, I keep on helping them to come into that accepting phase.
There is only much that you can do from your end.
Absolutely.
Understood. Coming back to our next question, I want to know, how do these addictions, not just like it's affecting the person, but how is it affecting the people who are surrounded, like the loved ones?
Yeah, so see, we always say that addiction is a family disorder. It is not just one person who's getting affected by it. The person who's having alcohol, who's having the drug, for example, is getting impacted in one way directly by whatever he's having, and indirectly through various things, right? Because his professional life will go for a toss, his family relationships will go for a toss. So he suffers, but he is the one who's consuming it. But he's not the only one who suffers, right? The entire family, entire circle of friends with whom he's working or living in close approximation, everybody gets impacted here. So if you think of a man who is married having, say, 2, 3 kids. He falls prey to addiction. Now, imagine the state of affairs in his house. Okay, the relationships will definitely go for a toss, right? There would be no trust, love, mutual respect in that place, because the person is now, it's addiction that is happening. It's taking everything, right? So the one who is the caretaker of the family becomes the perpetrator, because you'll hear a lot of abuse in that house, right? Verbal, physical, mental, sexual. Even there's another sort of abuse which we hardly talk about, that is neglect, wherein people don't even talk. So you'll find so many people saying, oh, this fellow, he drinks, he goes home, but he does nothing. He doesn't beat up his wife, he doesn't shout, he just goes off to his room and sleeps. That is another kind of abuse. But this is not a family, right? A person needs to be interactive, a person needs to be there with his family.
Communication.
Exactly. So each and every person gets affected. Okay, the wife who had her own dreams, and they started off on a very different note, having their own dreams, their own good intentions, the promises, everything falls apart for her. Yeah, she's left with all the responsibilities right now. Now she has to do some extra bit for the house, for the home, for the kids, because the husband is of no use now, right? So there's a lot of frustration going on. There's a lot of disappointment there. There's a lot of hopelessness there. Not just the wife, the kids. The youngest lot, like 5-6-year-old kids, they don't even know what is going on. Their vocabulary is not all that developed to even express what they are going through. They suffer. They don't have an escape. Where would they go? Their mother is hitting them because she can't do anything to her husband. Right? So they are the ones who are getting targeted there, and they don't know. They have no way out. Probably they are getting abused outside also, but there is no place where they can vent out to their parents, because dad is like this and mother is like this, right? The older children, I would say the teenagers are completely lost, because they don't know what a normalcy is. In their house, they see a chaos from where they want to run away, and these are the kids who would run away and then end up into drugs again. You see, these are the kids who won't be able to fit into the society, because when they go out, when they go to school, for example, they meet friends, and here there are a group of friends who are telling them stories of their happy family, and they can't connect, right? So they isolate themselves, and isolation is one of the very big reasons why a person goes in for alcohol and drugs. You see, because finally we are social animals. So every single person in the family gets impacted. Sometimes a person gets over responsible, because now for example, the eldest one, he or she would think, this is the situation in my house, and I need to be the parent now because my parents are gone, right? He becomes over responsible, over critical, and then that flares up when he becomes an adult or she becomes an adult. Some kids, they would go totally numb. They would stop reacting to anything. You would find them sitting somewhere isolated. These are the kids you will find in the school also. They are sitting and they are not concentrating on their studies and all. Sleeping, kids would doze off on the study table in the school, and the teacher feels that the person is not interested. The kid is not interested. The kid is shunned out of the class. You need to find out. Probably the kid did not sleep for nights altogether because of the chaos going on in this alcoholic family, right? Some kids, they would take everything in humor. They would not take anything seriously, because this is what they saw in their house, right? This was their way of defending or saving themselves. And some of them, they would become aggressive, violent, and you'll see them fighting in the school. Later on, these are the kids who end up in jails, right, for all these violent activities, right? So each and every single person in the family of an addict gets impacted to smaller or greater extent, this way, that way. Yes. Okay. So that's why we need to understand. As I said, we need to give the information we need to make them more knowledgeable about the fact that this is a disease, this is a family disease. And just treating one person who is taking what happens is the entire family starts looking at that particular person as the one, the reason. Okay, whereas it is not so. The person who's having the drug or alcohol is of course an addict there, but everybody else is getting codependent on that person, acting according to that person, behaving according to that person, thinking according to that person, you see. So somewhere that codependency is also, it's also kind of addiction, because now others are getting addicted to this particular person's behaviors, right? So they need to be told, they need to be informed that, boss, you are a different identity altogether. This might be a part of that, okay, but
you're not whole of it.
Exactly. So learn who you are, rediscover who you are. For example, a wife needs to know that she was something before she got married to this person, right?
She had a personality.
She forgot about
had a
that.
life.
Yes. So this is how we need to work when it comes to addiction. Just working with the addict will not help. The entire family needs support, needs treatment, and that's how we can deal with this issue.
Is there a possibility? So you mentioned like in the kids. So some can get into drugs, some can become aggressive, some can go into isolation, some can also become alcoholics, like the person who's addicted in the family. Is there a possibility or a chance of the child becoming the opposite?
Yes, of course. Now you'll find this in a lot of families, that a person, a kid who has both their parents as alcoholics, he has seen so much since the childhood, you see, that he understands that this is not something that I should get into. He learns the lesson. It's like a vicarious positive learning the kid has. Ki, boss, this is not good. I have suffered so much because of this, so I'm not going to do this, and end up doing what my
That's
parents
a great
did.
amount of self-awareness at such a young age.
Yes. Yes, but you know,
does it take a toll on them?
yes, of course, because they have this whole entire burden on them, constantly stressing on not having this thing. You see, later on, I shouldn't be doing this.
Shoulds
A
and
kid,
woulds.
yeah, a kid who is just 8 or 10 years old, he should be out, like playing around, right? Instead of stressing, ki, oh my god, what is this?
Like, I need to figure out my life already.
Yes. So yes, and these are the kids who will always have that fear of addiction, and as I said, it's a genetic disorder, in the sense it passes from generation to generation. So the seed has probably gone in him as well. And if at all he gives in to this fear of, falling prey to addiction, that itself can be a reason why he becomes an addict himself.
Right.
See? Because drugs, alcohol, these are the easiest way of giving a person an escape from reality. Problem is still there, but they know how to, dodge
Distract
the reality.
themselves and not face
Which is required.
life challenges. Coming back to our next question. Now, what are the ways you use for people to stay in treatment? So, like, what are the different kind of methods that you practice with people who are into addiction?
See, all the different kinds of therapies that you have, okay, can be used and tailored according to the person. Right? Starting from psychodynamic therapies, wherein you go back into the past of that person, go to the childhood, because we believe that everything emanates from the childhood, right? That, then coming on to behavioral things, behavioral therapies, right? Then you make the use of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, wherein you try and change the thought patterns. You identify them and then you change the thought patterns, and we help them to understand the difference between the feelings and the thoughts. Then there are other things like existential therapies, wherein you talk about the purpose of life, what is there. You make them aware of the fact that there's a higher purpose in life, and find these difficult situations are something that will help you build a better you. Right? Then there are other very interesting therapies these days, like for example animal therapy, arts and dance therapy. All these things, you have to create a nice mixture of all of these, and use it as and when. Of course, you have PCT all the time that we have to use, right? Wherein you have this unconditional positive regard and congruence and all that thing.
Yes.
So that is the basic framework. But what I feel is most important is to create that insight in them first of all. You know, when you say what is the way to make them stay in the therapy or get them into the therapy, none of these therapies would work unless they develop that insight about their problem. Half of the times you'll see that people are in total denial. They feel कि हो जाएगा, हम कर लेंगे. It is not a big deal. First of all, they'll deny that there's a problem at all. ठीक है? Because see, for all the other people around them, except that person himself or herself, it is a problem, right? We call it, he has an alcoholic problem. But for him, it has been a solution for years altogether. He is using that because he can't cope up with something, right? So for him, it is not a problem. It is the best way that he can escape that painful whatever reality
he's going through.
Exactly. So the first and foremost challenge is to develop that insight, to help that person develop that insight. Once that insight is developed, once he starts to see, okay, this is not something which is going to help me, I need to change something about this, then all these therapies, they will come into play. And the person will only accept when the person accepts to listen to you, right? Half of his, probably, you know, his age, half of his life, he has heard somebody saying, "Arey, chhod do, get rid of this," right? So he is not interested now to listen to this same thing again. Yeah,
He's tired
He's
actually.
he's tired of people giving him advices. Now he is like, "This is who I am. Deal with me."
Yeah.
So for me as a counselor, I have to stop discounting on his pain and pressure that he has been through his life, and then build that rapport, right? So that he knows that I am also on the same side of the table. I am with him rather than being on the other side
of the table.
Yeah, and that's how he'll allow me into his life, allow me into his life story, right? Open up, and from there, this whole thing begins. This whole
Journey.
process of acceptance and all.
So now what I wanted to ask you is this. Now, how, so it's subjective from person to person for people to open up.
Absolutely.
And the way that you do, if you could give us an insight in terms of how do you say, for example, somebody who is a drug addict, what would be your key ingredients that you use for a successful recovery?
So first and foremost, the fact that the person is sitting with me, it's a good sign, right? Somebody approached me. It means that little bit of
Change
acceptance.
they want.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a hope
So,
that
yeah.
they're coming with.
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost is like I appreciate the person
Congratulations.
to be there, and that if he is ready, then I am totally in there in the game, right? So main ingredients, if you ask me, of course, that acceptance has to be there, as I said, and the fact that the person is sitting with me, that means the person is in the contemplation phase, right? He is already there. That okay, I have a problem, but I'm not too sure whether I need to do something about it or not. Whether this will go off
Chalega and nahi chalega.
right. This is the time where I will like give him loads of information.
Right.
Yeah, so that he understands that okay, this is a problem. He knows that this is a problem. But then if he doesn't do something here, okay, the things will only get worse. Because this is like a progressive disease, we say. It is a progressive, chronic, recurring, progressive and relapsing disorder. Right? So this is progressive. This is only going to progress. If you don't do something about it, this will go on. And this will become this big now, later on. So what I do is I give them lots of information and then leave the decision to them. See, that's my job. Right? I cannot push them. I cannot do something on their behalf, to make changes. It's clear to them that if they want something to change in their life, they need to be the impetus of change. I can only facilitate that. So I give them enough information,
Mm-hmm.
give them a fair
Number
idea
options.
of how their life can change if they decide
Go ahead
to
with
change.
you.
Yeah. And then I leave the things to them.
Okay.
It's up to them after that.
So it's like self-realization.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot do much beyond that.
Right.
If they come back, then there's a plan for them,
Hmm.
which both of us
Waiting
will
for
create.
them. Yeah.
No. I create a plan along
According
with
to-
them.
yes.
Basically, it's the person who is going to make the plan. I'm only going to see that the plan is
Follows the
realistic,
plan, yeah.
doable, workable
Doable,
kind
yeah,
of a thing.
yeah.
And it is measurable as well.
So,
So, kind of smart goals are created, timelines are decided, and this is all done by the person. I will only give them,
you're just there along the way.
Along.
As long as
Yes.
they make the plan
Yes.
for themselves.
It's just that the plan has to be realistic. I keep making them, realize.
Remind them.
Yeah, be realistic. Because if you are not realistic, again you will fail, and again that becomes a reason to relapse.
Yeah.
So
It's a
that's
very
how-
like how do I call it? It's a very tricky place to be.
Yes,
you know, like
definitely.
in order to I don't know how people I hope people understand the gravity over here. Because for us, making realistic goals is I'll just say doable,
Mhm.
but they come from a different world. Once they are like I remember having this conversation with you, I remember you were saying that once they are out of even once they are sober enough, for them getting back to the world, so their world completely changes, like the whole narrative changes completely. So for them, making a realistic goal is like a new thing, because all this while they were distracting themselves. They never thought of making any realistic goals, if I may say.
Yes.
So that's something, that's a very, how do I say it? It's like a very tricky place to be in. But
See, what I'll say here
Mhm.
is something very important that we need to understand, and I really want everybody to listen to this bit. We are trained in our childhood on what? On succeeding, right? We are told that we need to pass. We need to pass with good grades, 80%, 90%. Nothing is enough. You have to pass, right? You can't fail. This is what is being told to us, right? Through the entire childhood. Our report cards, they would be like, they will highlight the
Red.
subjects in which you flunked. And there would be hardly any appreciation for even if you had moved on from 72%. That goes out of the window. So all our negatives, they are highlighted in the childhood. And this thing is, drilled into us that you have to pass, you have to succeed, you have to excel, right? Now, fine, that is okay. I mean,
which is good.
it's good. But how about preparing a child on the success route and at the same time teaching them how to deal with failures if at all a failure happens? Now, what happens is pass hona hai, succeed hona hai, excel karna hai. Child has been trained for that. The child
Pressurized.
never understands what should I do if I fail. So now when the person enters into the adulthood and realizes that life is not just about excelling, boss. Life is a mixture of success and failures. And then now the failures, when he faces,
How do I deal
he
with it?
doesn't know how to deal.
So
The
in
best
order to
way is to
distract,
escape. Escape from the reality by taking drugs and alcohol.
which is easily available.
It is easily available. So the thing is that this whole process of training, of dealing with failures, expressing emotions, talk. We are taught in the schools and by the parents how to say good morning uncle, good evening auntie, right? But nobody really bothers about teaching us how to communicate effectively. right? If I am hurt, how should I open up to my mom? How should I open up to my brother?
Yeah.
Nobody trains us on that. It is only about good morning, good evening, aa gaya to ho gaya ji,
Yeah.
right?
All about respecting the elders.
Exactly. So, or using the words like sorry, like an ATM card, sorry bol do, forgiveness mil gayi. It doesn't work like that. Understand what is the meaning behind gratitude, what is the meaning behind saying thank you
What
and
is the
sorry.
gravity?
Yeah. So, ठीक है, fine. Childhood, the brain is not all that developed to understand these higher concepts, but at least start introducing
somewhere.
these things.
Yeah.
We just forget, and then the child is only busy with his science and mathematics and becoming a doctor and engineer and everything. All the important value system goes out of the window, isn't it? People refrain from discussing the subjects like drugs, addiction, unprotected sex. Oh my god, you can't talk like that. This is so bad. You're too young to say. Encourage them to talk about it. That's how they will understand,
them, no?
isn't it?
Educate them.
Otherwise, they'll get some wrong information from outside, isn't
And
it?
they'll believe that as the truth for the
Of
entire
course,
life,
because-
maybe.
Because at home, you're not supposed to talk.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So, all these things, these are not being paid attention to. They need to be looked into.
So this is the, I can say, the social model, which is contributing, if I can say.
Yes, so now when I say that it's a biopsychosocial phenomenon, now you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing, it's not just habit, it is like a multifactorial thing. And if you start digging out for reasons and causes, you'll find n number of them. Right?
Right. Coming back to our next question. In your methods of treatment, what are the character strengths would you like to emphasize for achieving a successful treatment?
Okay, so while doing this post-graduation thing in wellness counseling, we came across some character strengths. Yeah? So there are total 24 of them. Now, when you use that word character, you see, automatically some different bells ring in mind, right? The moral framework comes into your mind. Whereas these are not something which has anything to do with morality or anything. These are like personality strengths, if you would prefer. I prefer to use this word, personality strengths. Now, there are 24 of them, okay? Starting from appreciation of beauty, excellence, then bravery, then you have curiosity, creativity, hope, humility, humor. There are 24 of them. And if you happen to see all of these characters, they can be used as strengths depending upon the person. Because we all have certain strengths, some of these personality strengths which are actually our strengths, and some of them we are not very good at. I mean, those are the areas where you need to work upon. Yeah. So depending on the person to person, depending on person to person, we identify the strengths and then we use those strengths to work on the areas which are not so strong, right? So it is like all the strengths can be used in some way or the other, but then the strengths which are already there can be used as weapons, as tools. Having said that, with whatever short period of experience I have about working with these people, there are 4 things which are very, very common that I have seen. One of them is self-regulation. Okay, this is one of the character strengths, as they say. People who are into any sort of addiction, okay, they fall on the lower side of the spectrum when it comes to self-regulation, because they cannot regulate their intake of substance.
Right.
Not everyone who's taking alcohol is an addict. Not everyone who's taking a drug is an addict, right? There's a specific definition. You have criteria which diagnose one as an addict. So these people, most of them which I have seen, they lack some sort of self-regulation. So, of course, that is one strength that is really required to come out of any addiction. Yeah? And we start working towards that. The second thing which I feel is short of is hope. Okay, these people are the ones, remember I said they have hit the rock bottom. So the ground is already shaky for them. The hope quotient is very low. They don't know what is there in store for them in the future. So that hopelessness needs to be taken care of. Okay, hope is another character strength, which is on the lower side. So need to work on that. The third thing I see which is lacking, or which they are not very strong at, is forgiveness, right? And I'm talking about self-forgiveness here. So they understand that because of their drinking or their drug addiction, so much damage has been done that they keep beating themselves for their entire lives, which actually hampers them from living a quality life. That is something again that needs to be taken care of. Yeah. And of course the courage. As I said, these are the victors, these are not victims, because after going through all this, they are still standing there, ready to take help and bounce back again. It takes a lot of courage. But not everybody is that courageous, right? So somewhere the courage part is like, and that needs to be taken care of. So these are the things which are like, which I feel they are the big areas in any person who's into addiction that needs to be taken care of. These are the 4 very important things. And then, as I said, all the character strengths, they are strengths for a reason, and they can be used in different ways while the therapy is on.
While the treatment is on.
Yes.
October 10th was World Mental Health Day, and I think the world did celebrate it by creating awareness of World Mental Health Day and how mental health is important. And this year's theme, so every year there's a new theme coming up in order to create awareness with regards to different theme and with regards to different areas that needs attention. This year's theme being mental health in an unequal world. Could you give us some relevance with regards to inequalities and people going with addiction?
See,
or do you see any inequalities?
See, this particular word, equality in world, it sounds like a mythology. It's a myth basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
Equality kahan hai? Not even 2 eyes are equal, right? So, what is more important is that we understand and accept the fact that inequalities will be there, have always been there, right? In a family of 3 kids, 3 kids are different, right? So parents deal with everybody in a different manner, right? And they have to, yeah. So inequality is going to be there. Now, as I said earlier, it is like how much well prepared a person is to deal with the nuances or the negatives of these inequalities in the world. That will decide a lot of things. Again, I will highlight this term, biopsychosocial. Now, a person who is having this addiction, the seed of addiction in them, versus a person who doesn't have. Okay. A person who has had a good childhood, a well-brought kid, right, who knows how to deal with failures and who knows how to deal with difficult times, versus a kid who has never seen failures, versus a kid who has always had somebody to, to do things for him, born with silver spoon, as you say, right? If they face this fact of inequality when they grow up, so a person who has that seed of addiction doesn't know how to deal with failures, right? It is very easy for him to succumb to these problematic, yeah, and because the person doesn't know that there are different ways of dealing with these unequal situations, unequal mm, what I would say, scenarios in his life, be it a school, be it a profession, be it his family.
Where he witnesses these
Yeah.
inequalities.
Yeah. So the person who doesn't know that there are ways out to it, what would he do?
Just right.
It's very easy for him to fall prey to alcohol and drugs. Because see, nobody wants to stay in a uncomfortable spot, right?
Yeah.
We want to get out of that
We always
state
want to be
of-
in our comfort zone.
yeah. And we try to get rid of our anxiety, our depression, that unpleasant feeling in this way or that way.
Mm.
So, if you are living in a place wherein drugs, alcohol are readily available,
Mm-hmm.
if you are having that seed in your mind already, you see having that seed of addiction in you already, okay, it is very easy to fall prey to this. Versus a person who knows that there are ways of dealing with this, they are strong enough to find out ways, good at problem solving skills, right? The person will not fall prey to this that easily, isn't it?
Mm.
And even if the person goes in for drugs and alcohol, if the person is not having that addiction thing, he will not become an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to be an addict, all the three things are required. Bio-psychosocial, as I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk of mental health in unequal world, and how I see how it is related to addiction. So what I would say is, people who have that addiction problem in them or addiction element in them, to deal with the inequalities of the world becomes secondary to them, because they know how to escape by taking drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
Okay. Vis-a-vis a person who is not having that addiction thing in them, and also has got a good amount of idea of what are the other ways of dealing with difficult situations, they wouldn't go there. But as I am in this field, right, I have to understand the whole mental state that they have been through while facing these inequalities, and why they, and then again the whole work of getting them aware of their own strengths, making them think of different ways they could have handled the situation because of which they have landed up into this, making their brains start work again, to start thinking about different difficult scenarios, that problem solving capacity that needs to be rediscovered with them. And it is only possible if I work with them in a team.
So it's like taking one scenario, going through how the whole scenario they had dealt with
Yes.
versus
Yes.
how they could have dealt with.
Yes.
Much more better way.
See, it usually, if you happen to meet these people, you'll find most of them, they started with some celebration. They started drinking. There was one fine occasion when the friends had gone and they were having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they had their first drink.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But later on, the drink grows on them, or the substance grows on them, because now they know how it feels after taking the drink. And whenever there's a difficult situation, this unreal thing, inequality wala thing, when they face that situation, they know, oh, if I take alcohol, then all this will be gone, at least for some time. Temporarily, I will gain something, So they keep going back and forth, and then comes a time when there is no looking back, because it grows on you. It's a progressive disorder. Later on, what happens is, now in the beginning, mind and body both, they try to oppose this introduction of this foreign element, like how you sneeze when you have dust particle in your nose. But later on, so when somebody is like constantly exposing to the substance, body and mind, both, brain also, they feel, okay, probably this is a part of me. I need to learn how to function while
With
having
it.
this.
With it.
Yeah. And then comes a time when body and brain both, they really don't understand how to work without it. That's when you realize that, oh, I have become dependent. And now the dose that you were taking earlier is not enough. So you
You
keep
need
on.
more.
Yes, so that's how tolerance develops. So this all, it will happen. These are the stages in which addiction grows, right? So in this unequal world, as I said again, we need to start preparing humans from the very initial stage, that is childhood.
And how do you think that is possible?
That will only happen if parents are, and the teachers, the direct caretakers, they are given this knowledge, this information. So like for example in schools, when there are parents teacher meetings happening, okay, counselors, they have counselors these days, right? The counselors should actually
Take a step.
they have to take this initiative and put this in their minds that, boss, as much as it is important to learn Jack and Jill went up the hill, it is also important to teach your kids how to deal with difficult scenarios. Okay,
Yeah.
because finally they will be there in that war front.
So you're saying add it into their curriculum.
Absolutely. Something needs to be done during the childhood. The parents, the teachers, both of them, they need to be trained on how to introduce these life skills, as you say. You see, the real life skills. तुम डॉक्टर बन जाओगे, engineer बन जाओगे, okay, all that will happen. But then still if you fall prey to addiction, and see, addiction does not spare anyone.
Choose.
Yeah, you will find a person from affluent family, rich people, yeah, even their child will be very easily into addiction and show the same symptoms as you find a slum dweller who is into addiction, right? You will find the same things, right? The symptoms will be the same. So it will not spare anybody. So introduce those life skills, that even if like it is there in the family, alcoholism is there in the family, the child will learn different ways of coping and will learn that alcohol is not the option here, right?
Nice. Now, since lockdown started, I want to bring in that. And I remember, I think when the lockdown had started, like, even the bars and everything was shut. And I know this through somebody that once the bars were open in Kerala, there was like a huge line of people at the liquor shops, and so how have you encountered people going through withdrawal or going into relapse during the lockdown period? Because I can only imagine how difficult it must be for them. And I'm talking about those who are on the verge of becoming addicts or on the verge of becoming alcoholics. So say for example, not the ones who are in the rehab, but the ones who are who are at their home, always drinking, because alcohol and drugs are easily accessible. Once the lockdown hit, everything was shut. Did you encounter those people?
See, the thing is that because of the lockdown and because of the limited access to this, people realize that they have a problem. The problem was always there.
Right.
It's not like they were on the verge of becoming an addict. They were always addicted to the thing. But because of the lockdown, because they suffered from withdrawals, they understood that they are in a big trouble.
toll.
Yeah. So it became a reason, or rather an opportunity, to identify the problem. Okay, because otherwise they wouldn't know. It was easy for them to go and drink to a bar every single
Easily
day.
accessible.
Now shut down ho gaya. So now the whole withdrawal thing is happening, and they are like, they never had this before. Okay, this is happening for the first
Never
time.
experienced it.
They get scared. Withdrawals are terrible, and with that scare, that fear, they went to the hospitals, because hospitals were anyways running, and hospitals were able to diagnose, this is like alcoholism is happening or some drug is. So after treating them for their initial symptoms and all, they would ask them to go to a rehab. Now the problem was that even in the rehabs, keeping all the precautionary measures in mind, we needed to put a limit to our admissions because we needed to maintain that social distancing, right? We needed to have that kind of sanitized atmosphere. So there was only as many number of people we could, but yes, there was a huge upsurge. People, when we had opened up, we had started taking admissions again. There was a sudden increase in the amount, in the numbers.
What was that like?
Well, people had suffered, and now trust me, the addicted person was of course going out and fetching for alcohol. The family people were also, because now this person was creating troubles out of withdrawals. So even the wife was finding a place from where to get, and all said and done, people who knew from where to get what, they were still able to get it. Okay, that's a different issue altogether. But yeah, most of them they couldn't, and then there was an upsurge because of the withdrawals. And because they had withdrawals, that's how even the family came to know, okay, there's some problem with this person. Otherwise family was ठीक है, father जाके रोज drink करके घर पे आ रहे, सो जा रहे, not an issue. It's not an issue. But when the withdrawal started happening, then alarms were ringing in the house. Oh, there is a problem here, and that's how they got the people to the rehabs. You see?
Have you experienced women going through alcohol problem or
So many of them.
drug addiction?
So many of them.
What is it?
The thing is that we don't have enough rehabs for women.
Where do they go then?
Some are lucky enough to find
Help.
right places, right help, right professionals. Some suffer. Do they have a choice? No. See, having a woman rehab is a huge thing because we need solid protection for these females. They will undergo the same withdrawal symptoms as men go, right? But talking of a female rehab, first of all, just imagine, our society is not that kind of mature place to look at a women's rehab with dignity, with respect. The minute they see a women's rehab, or every woman entering that place, okay, will be stand, right? So
the same doesn't happen on the other
yeah,
side.
that is not all that much here, this side, right? So because of the fear of stigma, women wouldn't ask for help, and then there is no place. So that's why I said that is one of my dream projects. You see, we need women rehabs, and we need society to understand. We need this society to grow up. When will they grow up? Yeah, they need to understand. They need to get this correct information that this is not about moral values and upbringing and training and all that crap. It is not about that. It's a disease, and it can impact men as well as women equally, right? And as much as a man has got the right to get treated for it, women also has got. What is the point in like stigmatizing them?
The inequality.
Yeah. So this is the basic inequality right now when I see in this addiction world, right? Why don't we have as many numbers of women rehabs here?
Yeah. Right.
Women are suffering as much,
Right.
Okay?
Right.
They are taking these antidepressant pills because of their alcoholic husband and getting addicted to those antidepressants. Nobody wants to see that.
Nobody wants to take care of that.
Recently, there was a woman, a very elderly woman. She has been on the painkillers and antidepressants for her life, and she just succumbed to death. Staying alone in her apartment. Nobody was there. So loneliness is another disease, boss. We can't deal with this. We need to see how to help women empower themselves, right? As much as we are working for women, for men. So yes, that is the basic inequality in this world.
Could you tell the viewers what are the different types of withdrawals that people can go through? Because I mean, see, when you and I speak of withdrawals, we know what are the, and this is something that I want to bring it out. Like, people from the mental health aspect, when we are talking among ourselves, we know what we are talking about. Whereas our this initiative that we are trying to reach out to people, create an awareness, it's for the people who don't know about this. So what are the different kinds of withdrawal that people go through, so that we can give them an idea in terms of what are the different kinds of withdrawal that you can expect from people, you can expect people having. And it could be like an how do I say it, it could be something that they can take in mind. If somebody else is, if somebody, their loved ones is going through that, then what they should
See,
do.
first of all, I would like to emphasize one thing, that home remedies and home treatments don't work very well. It's very rare wherein this has happened.
What are the home remedies and the
No, like for
things that you
example, a mother.
Mhm.
And mother sees that her son is an alcoholic
Mhm.
and addict. Okay, so she will try everything under the sun,
Hmm.
starting from emotional blackmail
Hmm.
to throwing the stuff out of the house,
Hmm.
in the pursuit of getting her son out
Out
of
of-
this problem. But the fact of the matter is, this is a disease. The guy is going to need a professional help,
Hmm.
right? So whenever you are planning to get out of this addiction thing, yeah, or whenever you are planning to help your loved one come out of it, please get
Reach out.
yourself admitted to a detox, because there we take care of all the symptoms, right? So the person is going to have insomnia, he will have sleepless nights.
Hmm.
Body doesn't know how to function without that substance, right? The person is going to lose his appetite. The person is, he might have hallucinations. People will have worst of the worst hallucinations. Recently I had somebody who had a hallucination of somebody constantly after him and killing him, constantly trying to kill him. Okay, and see, for you and me it is hallucination. Okay, we use the term hallucination, we know that this is, for the person it is real. Constantly finding some person, the moment you step out of the house you find somebody is standing there ready to hit you. It's scary, yes or no, right? Before going to bed you find a face dangling there on pankha, on the fan, that somebody is looking at you and ready to
It
hit
sounds
you.
funny to people,
Yeah,
but like
it's not,
it's
right?
terrible.
Hallucinations can be really handicapping. You can't function, you can't go out and work, you can't be all on your own because of this constantly things happening. There will be auditory hallucinations as well. Constant nausea, vomiting. People might have seizures as well. Fits. Okay, now fit, it's a very small word, right? With the fit, the person can bite his own tongue. Yeah? And then aspirate that saliva and get choked and die. Okay? So all these withdrawals, it is much better for them to happen in a well-equipped place, that is detox, right? Where people know how to handle such situations, rather than having them at home. You don't want to lose that person altogether, right? So please, I need everybody to know this, right? That you need to take professional help whenever you are planning to do this. Don't do it on your own.
I mean, it can get scary for people to know this, but
Absolutely.
people need to know about
Yes,
this.
they need to.
You know, because if they are not made aware, I mean, see, this is the best that we can do, like, you know, reach out and bring in the information, bring in the awareness. But if people are not aware only of what is it that we are talking about, it's going to be pointless. And these can also happen to women as well, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Of all ages. that
Yes. See, in one of the religious texts, it is said that if you educate women,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then your next 3 generations will get educated. That is the importance of women in a house, right? So if a woman is getting addicted, rest assured that the next 3 generations are going to get that suffering.
Hmm.
It is required. Of course it is required. So get rid of that stigma.
Hmm.
Have more women rehabs, and I want to like reach out to all the women there who are there. You know, don't think that you don't have any chance of coming out of it. Don't think that you are all alone in this. Reach out. reach out to the right people, talk to the right people, and you'll get the help. Of course, there are ways in which everything can be kept anonymous, right? So don't worry about the stigma part, but allow yourself that privilege of coming out of it.
It's not weak
No,
of you.
not at all. This is nothing to do with the moral values, as I said. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the upbringing, as I said. This is a disease, and it needs to be taken care of in a very scientific, medical manner.
Right. Coming back to my next question. How do you deal with people who are living in denial? This is going to be interesting.
Well, see, my job is to make a good facilitatory environment for the person to shift from that denial mode to acceptance mode. And I can do that by keeping my patients, first of all, not getting frustrated, keeping in mind that he's a patient or she's a patient. Okay, will take time. By providing all sorts of information to them without giving an advice or without judging them and telling them, oh my god, you can't do this. Oh, that person was able to do this and you are still stuck there. This is not the way. Okay, I have to keep that mutual respect thing, positive regard, because the person is having addiction issues, but that is not everything about the person, right? Then I have to talk to the family, because family has got a big role to play. Sometimes family doesn't know and they are enabling the whole thing. Yeah. So the family needs to know that the person needs to be given that pinch, that discomfort of his or her addiction. For example, a man who is not going to the office, to his work, staying home, drinking all day, and the wife is supposed to take all the calls from the office and tell, oh, he's not well, lie for him. Don't lie. Tell the boss, he's drinking, what to do? Kya hoga? He will be checked out of the thing, no? Let him feel the brunt. Right? If he drops something on the floor while drinking, make him clean it. Don't clean it up for him. Because otherwise he will go into that regressive mode. Childhood में पहुंच जाएगा कि कोई तो भी है जो कि खाना भी देगा हाथ में. Somebody will come and do the cleaning. Don't do that. Food is on the table. Come and eat. This is the time. I'm not going to sit and wait for you the entire night.
Yeah.
Women would do that, right? So this whole lot of things that you need to do. And it's not, as I said, it's not that one person. We have to deal with all the people who are dealing with this person and create that atmosphere wherein he gets into that discomfortable zone and feel the need to change. That's the only way how the person will get out of that denial. क्योंकि जब प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं हो रही तो कहाँ प्रॉब्लम है?
Right.
Once the person sees कि something is wrong here. Now a woman would throw the person out of her house, saying that get out of my house, you're drinking, don't come back, and then the next day she is the one who takes him back. Don't do that. Let him stay on the streets, no? Let him beg. Let him suffer a little bit if you really love him. That this is called as tough love. Let him see what is going on. So, bringing somebody out of the denial is a whole war.
Not only with that person, but even
No.
with that family.
Yeah.
Sometimes
The entire family is in the
Living in
denial.
denial.
It was a party, it was the college party or it was some celebration that was, otherwise my child doesn't drink. Well, there is a problem, see?
Here we are sitting now. Sometimes what happens is the person, so the person is living in denial. The family just expects you to do the whole job.
Yes.
मैं लाई हूँ इसको इधर, आप संभालो. They just want to give it off.
Yes.
So that's very.
Yes, people actually dump their alcoholic because it's a problem now. in the rehab and forget about it.
They want to do that.
Yes.
It's
But
like an
then
escape for them
Yeah.
in one way
Exactly.
or the other.
But it is up to the rehab guys now how to deal with that, right? So before taking the person in, you keep them in the loop and tell them that, boss, you have to attend these meetings, the family system therapy meetings that you have. You have to attend those meetings. You will have to come here whenever you are called upon. If it is required for the recovery of the person, and if you are called upon as a parent or as a spouse, you have to be there. Otherwise, you are not going to take him.
It works both ways.
Yeah.
Coming back to our next question. Have you come across a person who's found comfort at the rehab center
Oh.
and scared to go back to their normal life with
Yes.
the recovery mode on?
Yes. So many of them.
Like they fear, like, how will I do this?
See, when we say rehabilitation, okay, it is not complete till the time you see the person back in action, living a normal life in the mainstream. You see, if the person is trying to come back to rehab, that means thoda sa kam reh gaya. You see, so yes, there are so many of them who are 3 months, 6 months in a rehab. They go out and within a month's time they want to come back. And if they don't come back, they are back into their addiction and then they come back. You see? So, like, see, when you teach somebody to swim, yeah, you teach them in a pool first, which is like 4 feet water. Then you take them to the deeper side with
6
all
feet.
the gears on, safety gears on. Then you take them to a pond. Then you take them to a lake. Then you take them to the sea. Yeah, directly you don't throw them into the sea. So this has to be done gradually. This transformation needs to be done gradually. When the person is brought to the rehab, they are first put into the detox, and then once the effect of drug or alcohol is low enough, so much so that they can understand the sessions and what is being told to them, they move to the other wing, the rehabilitation part. Now in that also, they are still under the supervision and they are in a place which is confined. They don't have an access to that substance, right? Rehab, it is clean as it is. When they move out, okay, it is like throwing them directly into the sea. That shouldn't happen. So for the next 6 months, they should be made to come back to the rehab and attend sessions at least twice in a week, at least once in a week.
Just to check on how things are going.
No,
on
just to
outside.
keep in touch with the new system that they have learned, and at the same time have the taste of the outside world. So whatever dysfunctionalities they face in the outside world, they can come back to the rehab and speak about it to their
And tackle
counselors.
it again.
Learn new ways again and go back. So there has to be this
Link.
zone wherein they will have both the rehab life as well as the real life. And that's where they develop their skills on how to deal with this life. And slowly then you taper off, right? So for 6 months, the person is coming, say, twice a week and attend sessions and have sessions with the counselor. And after 6 months, it's once a month maybe coming to the rehab and having this thing. And later on, the person stays in touch with the counselor or the sponsor or whoever it is, right? So the handholding is done till the end, you see, till the time the person is good enough to swim on his own.
Right.
If this is not done in a proper staged manner, the person will not learn how to deal with the outside world. It was quite comfortable inside. So the sobriety, basically, the sobriety wala jo journey hai, the real journey starts when you step out of the
Outside.
rehab, right? That's the real test. Inside the rehab, everybody will be sober.
Right.
Right. So, yes, people who are not equipped with that, they want to come back. Sometimes it's the society who looks down upon them. There are so many people who don't want to tell. Where were you for 3 months? Oh, I was on a vacation. Or I had gone abroad. They don't want to tell that they were in a rehab. Why? Tell them that you were in the rehab. Tell them this was a disease. This is a disease.
Face your fears.
Tell them that this can be cured. I am an example. You become the role model for them, so that looking at you, 10 other people who are suffering, they will
get inspired. They will come to this person to understand how did you do it. I want to go back.
Absolutely. If you keep hiding this, how will you break the stigma?
Right.
So yeah.
And I feel now, how much ever experience I have gotten and the realizations that I'm getting every day. For some reason, I feel, this is my understanding and my narration out of it. People who have gone through something, could be apart from alcohol, addiction, anything, who have gone through therapy, and come back. I feel those people are the ones who find the true meaning in life. Compared to people who are not. I won't say that they are not going through anything, but the people who are just dealing with it just by themselves and in their own way, because I feel the work that happens in therapy, the work that happens in that space, and when you come out of it, you have like a whole new perspective.
Yes.
You actually understand the value of life, the value of your people. For some reason, I feel, I don't know, I may be wrong over here.
See, when we talk of therapies and counseling related to addiction, it is not just about the drug or alcohol, or if it is gambling, or if it is internet addiction. It is not just about that particular substance. It is about the entire you. Because alcohol or drug, not one single sphere of life will be gone untouched. Every single thing is getting disrupted. Your family, your work, your dreams, your psychology. You are getting emotionally bankrupt. You are getting socially bankrupt because socially nobody wants to talk to you anymore. Everything about you gets impacted. And this is apart from your body. Okay, your kidney is getting damaged.
Your whole
liver is
existence.
getting damaged.
Your whole existence for that matter.
So when we talk of counseling or therapy in addiction, it is not just the drug. We are talking about everything about that person.
Whole you.
Right? Now, a person who's entering into therapy and counseling for drugs, the person rediscovers himself. Right? So you know yourself much better. Like for example, when we say 12-step therapy, right? Alcoholic Anonymous. They have one step in which they make a fearless moral inventory. And trust me, these 12 steps, they are not only for addicts. This is for any normal person, right? So when they make their fearless moral inventory, they talk about the fears, the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses they feel they are having. So this is how they come face to face with their own dark side, I would say. So a person who is ready to face themselves, their dark side, is already strong. How many people are having that thing in them? Ask a person to... I remember one of our professors in Nirmala, Cindy ma'am. She used to talk about get up every day and look at yourself in the mirror and see for how long you can stare at yourself. It is scary. Seriously, when you start looking at yourself and say, okay, this is me. Like even the thought of it is making me uncomfortable here. And here we are people who are writing the things down, writing down fearlessly. That this is where I lied, this is where I
did something
wrong, this is where I misbehaved, this is where I dodged someone. This is where I
Played with someone.
played games with my mom, my wife. This is where I abused them. This is how sexually I abused somebody. I
I touched
did,
her ear.
right? Everything, right? So when you are, so when you are there, when you are sitting with that thing in front of you, you know who you are, and you know, boss, this needs to change because this I'm not liking this. That is the spot, that the
Tipping.
thing which changes the ball game altogether. That is the point where the balance shifts towards the change. So, talking about addiction, talking about anything for that matter, be it alcohol, drugs, or whatever, it is not just about the drug we are talking about. We deal with every single aspect of that person
And
in
the
counseling.
counselor needs to be equipped
Yes, of course.
to deal with all
Yes,
these,
absolutely.
all this. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just not the therapy. It's just not one therapy or one technique. You know, like it's all this aspect,
Yes.
like the whole biopsychosocial
Yes.
model.
Yes.
It's vast. You know, if you go to see and see, because I mean, people. Oh, she works at a rehab. Oh, she's a counselor. But you do not realize that we take care of all these aspects
Yes, absolutely.
just for that one person.
Mm.
And it's not that one person, there are other people also that we are taking. Plus, you're taking care of yourself as well.
Yes.
You know, like imagine how much of burnouts counselors can be going through.
Yes.
Like,
Happens.
yeah, and I specifically remember during my masters that I think one of our professors had told us this, that every time you are counseling somebody, they are taking a piece of you, you know. So in order to keep refilling yourself, you have to like, what do you do?
See, for me,
Mm-hmm.
I have chosen a supervisor. I found that it was the easiest way out. Out of my professors only, there's one person who's my supervisor. I don't know whether I can take the name or not, but the person is there. Like he's just sorry,
It's okay.
just one text away.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm in deep
Huh.
mess, I text.
Huh.
I need to talk. This is what has happened, and I don't know how to get out of this. Can I have a session with you? So, for me, my constant counseling is required so that I am able to function as a counselor to others.
And people think that just because you became a counselor, you can take care of yourself. This is
No.
one big myth. I want to bring it out to people. Like, I'm sorry. Like, see, together we can conquer. You know, in all the aspects of life or in all the whole journey of our life. Like, I mean, you can't go solo. You literally can't go solo in any aspects.
You know, what I would say, this is the most exciting part as well as the most burdensome part, is the confidentiality. Right? Every single case has got something about it which has to be kept confidential. Now, I cannot talk about this to anybody.
Not even your supervisor.
It's very rare that I will try not to open up to even that person, right? Because I need to learn.
Self-recognition.
But I can always talk about how I feel right now
Yeah.
when I
Regarding
after
that.
that particular session, right? So that is something I think one of the most important qualities of a counselor is to maintain that confidentiality and still not get burnt out.
And it takes practice.
Practice, and what you need to practice is the boundary system. It works so well. I mean, there's a saying which says, "Not my monkey, not my circus," right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this is what I can do. Beyond this, everybody is a monkey only. So I can do as much, but I cannot see if that person is having pain in abdomen, stomach ache. The person needs to take the pill. I can tell, okay, these are the pills that you need to take for that stomach, but I cannot take the pills myself, right? so that not even his mother can take the pill and make that pain go away. You have to do this. So it is as simple as that. The moment you understand, you see, you draw a line. बस यहाँ तक ही है. You save yourself from a lot of burnout.
A lot of.
Otherwise, you take that burden back
With you
home
everywhere, wherever you go.
And then one thing I always keep in mind, that it is not necessary that each and every single person who is coming to me as a counselee, okay, will get benefit out of me. If I am not the one, then there's somebody else.
Remind yourself about that
Yes.
constantly, because
Yeah.
you should not
Yeah. I mean,
doubt your capabilities.
no, I never do that. It is like, if it matches well. If it did not match with me, there's somebody else there. I would not hesitate to refer that person to the other person. Okay, the person needs help.
The betterment for them.
If I am not good enough or not good enough, if I am not fitting the bill, right, there's somebody else there.
Right.
If this is not the rehab which is fitting your bill, there's some other rehab.
Right.
If this is not the therapy system that is,
then you want to follow, or
Correct.
you want to.
there's some other.
There's something else which is working,
Yes.
which will work.
Absolutely.
I will see whether it's playing.
इतनी बकवास करनी पता चला कि हुआ ही नहीं.
No. One last question. Now, people who will come across alcoholics, drug addicts, say for example, like in the future, according to you and according to your experience, how can these people, be more empathetic towards these people? How can they be more non-judgmental?
If people understand that this is a disease, okay, half of the battle is won. So just like a disease, if somebody is having issues, somebody is having a medical ailment, they need treatment, isn't it? You will not doubt a diabetic, you will not doubt a person who has high blood pressure on their moral fiber,
Grounds.
right? If somebody tells you that I am suffering from this, you will directly tell them that go to a doctor, right? If you have broken your leg, go to an orthopedician, get yourself treated, right? If your heart is having issues, you go through cardiac surgery. So you go and get yourself admitted to a cardiac hospital, stay there for some time, get yourself treated, and then you come back home. Yeah? It is the same. If the person is suffering from addiction, send them to a rehab, detox, and go through the sessions, go through the therapies, go through the entire program in the rehab, which is of minimum 3 months. Less than 3 months, it doesn't work. Okay, the chances of relapse are higher if the person leaves the rehab before 3 months are over. So a person who has gone to a rehab, has come out, just look at him as a normal person who has been detected with a disease, who has been diagnosed with a disease, and was put into an institution wherein he got treated. Of course, there is no cure, but he got treated and he has come out, and now he is trying to manage his life along with the fact that he has a problem, right? It is just like a person who never knew that he had, say, blood pressure issues. Okay, something goes wrong in his life and the BP shoots up. Because of that, he has different symptoms. He fell unconscious, for example. He was rushed to a hospital. There, the problem was detected. Finally, they diagnosed that okay, there is the hypertension is the problem here. Family में है, इसमें भी है, right? Proper उसका prescription बनता है, treatment होती है, and he is asked to take certain medications, probably for the entire life now, right? But he is also told exercise well, eat well, keep yourself de-stressed, create some healthy lifestyles here, right? So he is trained in the hospital, right, by different people. He comes out and he starts practicing those things and learns to live life along with hypertension. Yes, there is no query,
Taboo around
anything.
this.
So people need to understand addiction is the same. Okay, till now everything was fine, recreational drinking was going on, but after some time everything goes for a toss, everything goes on the compromise mode, and the family realizes, oh my god, this is too late. This person is creating issues now. He can't stop, we can't do anything. They put him to a rehab. There, proper things are done, detoxified, sessions, trainings, everything happens, and then he comes out. When he comes out, society needs to look at him in the same way. That now this is the person. A person who has been diagnosed with addiction, okay, it is something like you are diagnosed with diabetes. So once a diabetic, always a diabetic, right? But a diabetic can be managed diabetic. Okay, so the diabetes is still there, but the person is able to manage his life, healthy life. There are so many cricketers who are diabetic, but they still play, right? So they know how to live life along with that by creating some healthy lifestyles. Right? Similarly, a person who has been diagnosed with addiction. So once an addict, always an addict. They always say once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But I would like to add here that they need to specify. Once an alcoholic need not mean that he's always an active alcoholic. He can be a recovering alcoholic. He can be a recovered alcoholic. He can be still into recovery. You know, you can use those adjectives so that people get that thing out of their mind. Oh, he's an alcoholic. No, he is a recovering alcoholic. You will find people talking about recovering, being a recovering alcoholic most of the time. So he is recovering. He needs social support. Okay. Don't treat him like an animal, like you know how people watch animals in the zoo. Don't do that. Try and normalize the situation as much as possible so that the person gets back into his normal life. Right? He will learn how to live along with the fact. Right? He will stay abstinent, or some people they choose to have harm reduction ways. Fine, up to them. But he will learn to manage. He will learn to live a good life despite having that addiction problem. Right? This is the way.
But so people also, apart from like taking care of this person, any way that they can educate themselves,
Yeah, of course.
like so that they are more mindful, around individuals who are recovering, or yet to recover. Like how can that happen?
See, this is something which I would say the outreach programs should take care of. Right? For example, going to schools. Yeah, going to schools, especially the students who are in 10th, 11th, 12th standard, which is the usual stage when they get exposure to such things, right? Go and hit this target. Educate them what happens when you take drugs, when you take alcohol. Show them movies. There are so many documentaries, well-made documentaries which can have a good impact on them. Show them, let them know what is there, right? So this becomes something which is like an outreach thing. Yeah, people need to know when you go to like how you do those street plays and all, right? Do those. Show them what is it like, what is it all about.
Show them the dark side.
Yeah.
Instead of not.
And give them the entire information. But this is a disease. I keep on saying that, because so many people, arey wo alcoholic hai, he must be a rapist. Arey wo alcoholic hai, he must be a wife beater. Arey wife beaters normal log bhi hote hain, right? Sirf alcoholic nahi hote hain. So this needs to be taken care of. And they look at these people with a very different, no respect wala. So that is something that needs to be taken care of.
Right.
Education is the key. Educating these people is the key. Educating society is the key. Educating schools is the key. Because from there everything begins. You see?
Yeah. And these things are not taught to us, and like when life happens, that is the time we are supposed to figure it out.
Yes.
So, which becomes difficult because there are no people to support you for that. Rather than there will be people pinpointing you for that.
Yes.
And yeah, that's something that needs to change big time.
I remember one of the patience asking me this question when I started the sessions with him. He was like so surprised. He looked at me and said, "You know what, ma'am? Nobody ever asked me why actually I drink. People have always pointed fingers at me that I drink and I drink this much, and after drinking what I do. But none of the people in my family ever bothered to know, to find out why I drink."
Communication doesn't happen.
Communication. And then we discount on emotions altogether. Whereas emotional sabotage happens like this.
Aisha, thank you so much. I did not know it would go this good. I can't stress on how good. I am grateful that I know you. I'm grateful that I have you. And it's, I don't know, I can go on and on and on. But I think this video will also like extend to like almost like a 3-hour video. I don't think people would want to watch a movie on us. So thank you so much from Towards a Better You, from Talasha, from me, and to all the viewers. Like, I mean, is there something that you want to end it with?
The bottom line is, please educate yourself, be non-judgmental. Addiction is something that can happen to anyone, right? From being somebody from affluent families to a slum dweller, as I said. And please reach out for help. The help is right there around the, it's just one call away, okay? Without getting afraid of anything, without getting afraid of being labeled or not, because it is about you. Just think about yourself, be selfish in that matter, and reach out to the right people. There is always a hope.
There is always hope for Towards a Better You.
Yes, towards a better you.
Because change begins with you.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you.